Uh-oh. I gotta go find the thing, hit the mute button like I do every day. I never can seem to prepare. And this is an example of that. While I just run through this little tune I want to play, because it's such a happy song by the Mountain Goats. I'm gonna we got a couple folks here. I just met the Logical Lion yesterday. I believe he said his name is Greg, and I want to show him respect, but I prefer Logical Lion. I'll probably call him Logical. Y'all refer to him however you want. And we have Clinton Cox, the big red Clint. And I'm just so happy to have y'all here. If you want to tell us who you are one at a time, pick your own order. I'm going to strum up.
Right on. Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm getting kicked out of my phone. I don't even know if you can hear me right now or see me.
Yeah, I can hear you, dude. No worries.
You're there.
It started when it went live. Something weird happened with it. I can't figure out where to go now. Oh, there we go. Maybe I'm in here. No. Bear with me for a second, boys. I'm not real.
Technical difficulties. Well, I'll take advantage of the lull and do my obligatory intro.
There you go.
I've been watching YouTube for fucking years, but as a more or less a spectator, just sitting on the sides going, oh, that's fucking stupid. That's fucking stupid. Atheism Plus happened, and I went, okay, this is kind of ridiculous. Why the fuck are we splitting this organization or this loosely fit community whose only tying factor is a lack of belief in God, and yet all of a sudden we have to be concerned about social issues? Like, how does that work? And so I started getting really annoyed about that, and I started feeling that drive to get out there and, you know, become part of the conversation. But I didn't really give I didn't care enough, essentially. I mean, if I'm being honest. And then Gamergate happened. And again, I was like, what the fuck is going on? We're finding ourselves in this culture war where our very identity as American, Western, democratic, white males is basically being denigrated. Yeah, right? The new boogeyman. And then the whole terrorist shit that's going on lately that has just been spiking. I mean, it's ridiculous. So again, like I said yesterday, I had to throw my hat in the ring. I had to create an account on Twitter and, you know, just start getting out there talking shit to people. I started making YouTube videos, because I have education in animation, game design, and economics. And I tried to combine the three of them into the early part of my channel doing the animation stuff, but fuck, that is so hard. That's the amount of time. It's not hard, it's just busy work. The amount of time you put in is just, it's a pain in the ass. And I'm retired, man. I don't want to be doing that shit. So I'd much rather do streams and just talking with people. So I kind of turned my channel into a stream of consciousness, record the screen, but I'm new at this video editing.
You're retired. You sound very young, and I'm not even joking with the ideas that you've shared. With all respect, I thought that you were probably in your mid-20s, maybe 30s.
I am.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm retired young too, but not that young. Very congratulations, Mazel Tov, as we say.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, I retired the first time at 33, and then again at 38. I got bored, man. That's when I opened the dispensary. I had a medical marijuana dispensary.
Oh, that's an honorable trade. I know some people that do it.
Well, we didn't have shit for veteran services when it comes to weed in Oregon, and I'm a vet too. I'm actually a disabled veteran, and so I and my brother decided to do something different and make a change, and, you know, fought all the politics and bullshit, and really got me into fighting for what I believe in. Because, yeah, I'm pretty apathetic. I don't really give a fuck about much. I'm more or less a hedonist in most things. I can't be bothered, you know. As long as it doesn't negatively impact my life, I'm going to go about my day. But when shit does affect my life, I'm going to get serious about it and, you know, steamroll my way to whatever outcome I want.
Good for you, man. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. That's exactly what I want to hear out of people right there. That's almost like my story. You sit there and watch it go on for so long before you actually just do it, man. You just get in the game and you just do it, and you don't even know what you're doing. You know, you don't even know if like what you're like. It's like baby steps. You know, you just get in the game, get in the fight, get in the ring. You know.
Yeah, be in the arena. I'm gonna play a little quick tune here in a second. I'm just I'm looking for Mad Dodge. I know that I've got him somewhere in here. Maybe he want to join us. I'm not even sure if he's free.
He may not be, but I know that I told him about it earlier. I told him I was coming on today, so he may be. I don't know what his schedule. I know he's out in Oregon, so he's out on the West Coast.
Yeah, and Oregon, there he is, and I believe that Oregon. Now, this is what I've heard. Maybe you can help me, Logical. That they've been basically legal since 1978, at least legal to have a small amount of plants and an ounce or so on your person.
No, that's a common misconception. It was decriminalized in 1972, which means that basically what the Fed is doing now. They said it's still illegal, but we're not going to waste the time and effort of trying to police it. So if you got busted, they would, in most cases, just confiscate. They wouldn't go through the effort of actually charging a crime, unless, of course, you had enough quantity that they could get you for a distribution.
Yeah, well,
and then it legal didn't happen until 98, I think. But again, I'm rusty, man. I knew all this shit, 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I don't keep up on that part of it either because, to be perfectly bluntly honest, I've used cannabis my whole life, and it hasn't always been legal by the man's I don't know how to say it, by the the government's definition. But everybody that I knew, including people from church, atheists, everybody I know was like, weed, nah. We don't care. It's not. Every time I hear that's like the state versus so and so, no, it's not. Because if you ask the people of any given state, they say marijuana. No, we don't want to waste time or money on that. I mean, if they're selling crocodile to teenage kids, I might even get behind that. It'd be hard for me to get behind the enforcement of any drug. I mean, that would be corruption of a minor. See, but anyway. Right. Boom, there's my opinions on that. I don't believe in, I think that the laws should be don't hurt, don't steal, and kill, of course, hurt. So that's it. I don't know why there should be any other laws other than that. If you follow those two laws, you ain't gonna hurt, And I, of course, Logical, I think would I be hurting somebody if I said something to them like, your mother's a truck stop whore?
Words are violence.
I mean, either one of y'all can talk. I mean, because I don't think so, man. Myself, there's things people can do that would be negative to someone that could hurt them, but not words.
No, dude. Sticks. What happened to Sticks and Stones?
Well, you heard Justin Trudeau. Didn't you hear Justin Trudeau's version of that? Logical?
No.
He said, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but sometimes words can hurt you." I shit you not. I almost wept. I looked up at my grandmother who watches over me right here, my little 4'10" Jewish grandmother, and she's saying, "Ogre, you stiffen up, young man." What? Bam! You know what I mean? And then you got this, like Sticks and Stones. Because if I came to her and was like, little Bobby called little Ogre a dick, boo hoo hoo, she'd give me something to cry about.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, Trudeau also believes that when you kill your enemies, they win.
Okay,
that's the fucking leader. That's the guy right there.
Straight down the road to hell, they're leading people.
Jesus Christ. Blame Canada.
People.
Oh my God.
Are you gonna play your song? I thought you were prepping the warming up.
Yeah, I'm on it, man. Check this out. This is
sorry, I've been binge watching your other streams, so I kind of am familiar with your.
You may have heard this.
Do your thing.
This is one of my favorites. It's a song by the Mountain Goats called "This Year," and it's about I don't know really. It seems to be just a kind of a happy, sad song. La da 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 da. No, just teasing. That's got nothing to do with the song.
That was the best song I've ever heard.
That was my poontang, getting ready to eat poontang song. I broke free on a Saturday morning. I put the pedal to the floor, headed north on Mills Avenue, and listened to the engine roar. My broken house behind me and a good thing ahead. A girl named Kathy wants a little of my time. 6 cylinders underneath the hood, crashing and kicking, aha, listen to the engine whine. I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me. I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me. I played video games in a drunken haze. I was 17 years young. Heard my knuckles punching the machines. Taste of Scotch rich on my tongue. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Then Kathy showed up and we hung out, trading swigs from a bottle, all bitter and clean, locking eyes, holding hands, twin high maintenance machines. I'm gonna make it through this year if it kills me. I'm gonna make it through this year if it kills me. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. I drove home in the Michigan dusk. I could feel the alcohol inside of me hum. Picture the look on my stepfather's face, ready for the bad things to come. Downshifted as I pulled into the driveway, the engine screaming out, stuck in second gear. The scene is badly, as you might imagine, in a cavalcade of anger and fear. There'll be feasting and dancing and Jerusalem this year. I am gonna make it through this year if it kills me. No, that's the end. I could just keep doing that all day. Stupid shit at the end.
That's really good.
Oh, that's a. I love that song because it talks about being young and stupid and some of the results thereof. And isn't it good to be young and stupid?
You're definitely not a terrible singer, man. That's actually, and to be honest, I'm one of those people that believes in brutal honesty about all things. I don't have a lot of friends, but you know, it is what it is. And actually, I was not repulsed by that. That was actually pretty good.
Dude, that was really good.
Thanks.
And it was cool. I've never heard that song before, but I really enjoyed it. It sounds kind of like a punky song. It sounds young.
Everything I do kind of sounds like that because I suck. I would just point out that, Logical Line, I appreciate your compliment, but that is the culmination of 35 years. Because I've been trying to sing since I was 7. I mean, honest to goodness, trying to impress people by singing. And I love Andy Kaufman. Somebody accosted Bob Hope one day, and they were like, you know, he's very famous at this point, getting toward the end of his life. He maybe had 10, 15 years left, and they said, Mr. Hope, you know, you've made so much money on this in your comedic career. How do you feel about being a comedian? And he looked at that reporter and he said, a comedian? What are you talking about? I'm a professional golfer. I do the comedy guff to pay the bills. And you know, I always kept that in my mind. I was very young when I first heard that. How you doing, Brett? I'm just giving my spiel about Andy Kaufman, about how much I love him and try to emulate him in a lot of ways. And I don't draw a lot of parallels to that. All you have to do is watch my behavior and things that I do, and you'll see that I'm not joking. I try to emulate him. He used to wrestle girls. You all know that? He would go to this place in Memphis, Tennessee, and rile the crowd up and tell them they needed soap. I used to stay up because they were stupid, stinky rednecks. I mean, a crowd of people that...
Does gravity work differently in Michigan?
No, what happened, sir?
No, it was just regarding someone else who just appeared on camera.
Oh, you're talking about Review the Earth. No, he's in the... I asked him if he was going to do the Batman thing. So anyway, to wrap it up, because the Britisher's here, and we got asked a serious question today, Britisher. I mean, we can talk about, like, I want to ask Clint a couple questions about the concert, but we'll kind of treat that like the video game thing the other day. Maybe save that for the end. But listen, pick somebody that you enjoy, somebody that you believe, and you don't have to, I'm going to say this carefully. I got to say this carefully, and it's going to take me 3 minutes. I'm not trying to tell you that you have to have a hero, that you have to look up to somebody. I'm just going to give you a piece of advice, something that I've used in my life. See someone, and try to keep it narrow. Don't pick a group of people. See someone, or ones, 2 or 3, that are really living the life that you would like to live. They're having fun or not, whatever it may be, because some people like to be sad. Some people like all kinds of different things. I'm not going to go through the list. You know what you like. Find someone that does it, has accomplished that. Take some time to see what they've done to get there, and then try to emulate that. if you do that, you're going to find out if you also make what you like to do your job, you're going to have an easy life and you will get what you want. Because in the end, our actions dictate what we receive. Some people say as you reap, you'll sow, you know, whatever. I don't know. There's all kinds of different ways to say it. So look, I think that was less than 3 minutes. So this was the question. Or how you doing, Britt? You got anything to say? Hi? Just hi. I'm not going to ask you any probing questions today. No personal questions today, sir.
Well, yeah, no, I just sort of thought I definitely would have to show up, see how the ogre's doing, because you know we didn't have our daily routine today. He went right for the garden right from the start.
Man, I was up and hit the ground running, mate. I'm still, as soon as this is over, because I just took time to take a shower, wash the filth off of me. As soon as it's done, man, I'm back to doing the same thing. I'm actually moving soil. A lot of times I'll just say I'm farming, and that means I'm taking care of the property here that I have. And oh man, chickens are so much more destructive than you might think. They tear up they dig the ground.
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly filling in those holes. But anyway, I'll get back to that and then plant some tomatoes and some other stuff before the sun sets today. I mowed 4 acres yesterday.
4 acres? Because I was just about to ask, you know, what kind of scale do we have to imagine here?
Oh, and mine, no, I mowed 4 acres yesterday. Where I'm at right now, the part that I take care of and groom, it's about, it's 2 acres. It's an acre wide and 2 acres deep. That's the part that needs attention, like mowing and garden and whatnot. You know, everything else is just wilderness. It just takes care of itself.
Yeah, but honestly, I'm surprised to hear that chickens would be that destructive because, you know, when you see them, you just sort of think, well, they do a bit of pecking and that's about it.
Now, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't have got so many of them, brother. It's hard to even. I'll take some pictures and share them with you so you can see what I'm talking about.
They shit a lot.
They sure do.
Oh yeah, I titrate how much I feed them. So since I'm in control of what they eat, they generally this time of year they get maybe a small handful of corn, or that's about it. Every other day. The rest they can go get bugs and eat grass, because if you don't, man, if you spoil them, they get fat, lethargic, and lazy, and they poo. Britisher. There's 2 things that you should know. Anybody that wants to get some chickens, don't get a rooster, or you're stupid. You don't need a rooster for the hens to lay eggs, because roosters are hell. And then the next thing you need to know, they will destroy, and they can get under or over damn near anything, because that's another thing on the list. I'm just going down the damn list today. And the list just happens to be because it's spring. And I may have been a little lax in my duties over the course of the last couple weeks. I may not. I'm just saying that's a possibility. I haven't come to that full conclusion quite yet. But it may be that that's the case. So I'm playing catch-up. How about you, brother? What are you doing?
Well, you know, I mean, you just basically sort of wonder whether the world is going insane. I don't know whether any of you have caught this wonderful story that I think Tildeer and Baring picked it up. And that is that I think 2 authors hoaxed a paper, an academic paper, and got it academically reviewed. And what was it called? The Conceptual Penis as a Social Construct.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah, I watched the live stream with Tildeer earlier.
Did you see that? Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, I was trying to I was really. What are they trying to say? Break it down so somebody can understand it.
Well, I think, you know, they were kind of. I mean, obviously, the whole thing was a hoax, and they were basically kind of arguing with incredibly jargon-infested language in order to make it sound academic, because that's exactly how those papers sound. They were kind of trying to make the argument that, well, now that, of course, not only, you know, effectively toxic males had penises, but now that also, you know, transgender people had penises and whatever, that it was now, strictly speaking, a kind of social construct as to what the concept of the penis was supposed to represent. And what was so fantastic is that they actually managed to get this reviewed by 2 academics who actually thought this was, this was kosher stuff. you know.
And there you go. So how much? Because I always say this kind of hurts me, Brett, because I do a lot of reading, and I've never lost my access from the school I went to their peer-reviewed journal library. I can go on there and I can get all kinds of academia that you'd have to pay a little bit per month. Anyway, and I used to be like, well, I read it in a peer-reviewed journal. So now are you telling me that that really don't mean shinola?
Well, I mean, when it comes to these kind of social studies things, they basically just all peer review each other's papers and wave them through. I mean, you know, the idea that there is much academic rigor in those criteria is just nonsense. And generally, there also seems to be a certain amount of, what should we call it, inflation in the academic field, whereby now just complete garbage is being seen as an academic subject. I mean, the best one I came across just today, I think, was let's see if I can find this somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, Cambridge University appoints Lego professor of play.
What?
What?
Yes, yeah, I know. It's one of those things that makes you do a double take. I'll just try and
Yeah,
send
will you
the
say
link
that
here.
one more time? I mean, oh, there we go. So I'm going to screen share this, Brett.
Yep. I mean, whenever you come to things like that, you just hope for God's sake that you're actually dealing with a hoax or something. But you know,
Says Cambridge University appoints. This is the one.
yep.
The University of Cambridge has recruited a Lego professor of play. I can't even read this. I can't read this. I mean, this is real. This is, so they're saying a professor of play following widespread interest in what was billed as a dream job role. So, a professor of play.
Yeah, so it says here the Lego Foundation, which owns 25% of the Lego business, gave the university £4 million grant to help found its Centre for Research on Play in Education, Development and Learning in 2015. Its research aims to ensure that children are equipped with 21st century skills like problem solving, teamwork and self-control. The professor of play will be the head of the centre, and the grant will also help fund this post. The average salary for a Cambridge University professor is £83,981, according to a Times Higher Education pay survey.
It sounds to me like it's not an actual professorship. I think that it's that they funded opening a center where like kids can come in and play with Legos, and he's in charge of the center, and so his like, I guess de facto title is professor of play.
Yeah,
He's a glorified,
they're still going to pay him.
babysitter.
Oh, go ahead, man. This is killing me, so I'll shut up for a minute.
So if you go further back, you know, we need the best evidence possible in order to inform the vital decisions that are made about children's education and development. And I look forward to taking that work forward together with colleagues at Cambridge. Researchers at the centre, based at the university's Faculty of Education, will work to devise and evaluate play-based teaching approaches. So this does seem to be something which will be studies and papers and whatever.
Yeah, you're right. That is fucking retarded.
So yeah,
Scary in a way.
we have a professor. We have the Lego professor of play.
I don't even know. I'm almost at I'm not at a loss for words, but all the words I have are just. Are you kidding me? Because
what
the
is
pay is
what
right
is
down
more
here.
worrying about that is it's not just that they've kind of, you know, the University of Upper Winstable. This is Cambridge.
Yeah. It sounds to me like the course, the idea of the course is to teach the subject as though you're playing or teaching little kids.
Well,
Like,
that is
that's what it
if
sounds
it
like. That's
that
what
is
it is.
if it will be a course or if it is just a research post.
Either way, that doesn't bode well.
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
no,
and it just shows that they can make anything that they want. what I'm going to wonder is this going to be a required class? It didn't say anything in it. Because they can have all the gender studies. What bothered me is I showed a book too many times. I'm not going to go grab it again. It's called Women and Gender Roles in the Ancient West. So in other words, Greece, Rome, you know, the island of Lesbos. We learned about Inky Doo and Dinky Doo and all these things. I mean, we learned about shield maidens. We learned about stuff that the rest of the school said was bullshit. And everybody and the rest of all the professors that I knew was like, you're going, oh man. But I had to take it. I had to take it. The book that I had to buy was written by the two ladies that taught the fucking class. And part of our assignment was to like sit around and talk about our feelings. And we got graded on it. We got graded on like, and I mean, I kind of like that part because I'd be all into it. Like just, I didn't care. I just throw whatever. Anyway, that's the problem I have. Are they going to start requiring Plato 211, 212, whatever? Are they going to start requiring, you know, Lego 4, you know, I don't know. That's crazy. Is that going to be a requirement? And if so, how much are them fucking Legos going to cost? Because they overcharge you for books.
Legos are already expensive.
Talking of Lego, do you remember? I'm just trying to recall what this guy was called. You know, the Chinese artist who designed the Bird's Nest Stadium in China. You know, the main stadium for the Olympics in Beijing. He once in a while he does another one of these modern arts projects. I won't go into what I think of modern art, but for one of the more recent ones, he required Lego, and he put in an order because you can order bricks from Lego directly, so you get exactly the type of bricks that you want. And because he is known as, is it Ai Weiwei or something like that? I think that might be his name.
Yeah, it's Ai Weiwei.
Because they know that he's a dissident, so he's not popular with the Chinese government. Lego actually refused to supply him with the bricks because they were afraid that he may perhaps make something that was, somehow comment on China or the Chinese government or something like that, and that might not reflect well on them and their sales in China. So they actually refused to deliver him, to provide him with any bricks. So what happened was that on hearing this on the news, lots of people just simply went ahead and ordered thousands of bricks from Lego and then sent them to him.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay? I switched from my phone to the PC.
It's much better.
Yeah, fine.
It's much better. Cool. And I'm not going to keep droning on about your sites. I am going to say this, as we wrap up talking about this insanity in the universities, we could tag anything else we wanted on as our final word, because I might, on the idea of who they hire and what they do. Has anybody seen, like, the new prime minister of, I got to be careful, because me and Jeremy talk, look, I don't want to say frogs, but the guy in charge of the frogs.
The president of France.
Yeah, that guy. What's
Emmanuel
his name?
Macron.
Macron. I mean, I've got to get used to saying it like that. Macron. Well, they was going to glad hand, and he just like dissed Trump, and then Trump like snatched. Did y'all see that? Did he snatch his hand? He like, Trump's like grabbed him, was like looking at it, and just like threw his hand away.
That's funny. I like how Trump like
that was
pushed
probably
his
the
way
inappropriate time. But.
That was like me at the concert, man, just shoving people out of the way to get to the pit.
Did you see that logical line? Was I cutting you off?
Yeah, no, I was saying when he pushed through the crowd, that's so American, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
did you notice any of that stuff happening over there? Did they even talk about it in Britannia?
Oh yes, yeah. If you remember, I shared that on the chat yesterday. I was the one who put the link up to the GIF that had just been posted by the Associated Press.
Yeah, so what can we put up as far as clips go? What do you think they would try to copyright strike me if I just found it where he was doing the shaky? Because that's why I brought this up, was from that yesterday. Because that was good where he bulldogged through the crowd, but this is where he's got Macron, and he's going to glad hand, and he obviously is like going toward the president of the United States, probably the dude there, whatever, and he just ignores him, and then he's glad handing Merkel and all these other people. And then, I don't know, the mannerisms, Trump, it was obvious. He can't spin it, and he shouldn't try. I mean, because he snatched his hand, he like jerked him forward, and then did one of these, like looking down at him, like, and was like cranking him, like he was trying to start an old Model T forward, and then just threw his hand away. And, I was like, holy shit, go POTUS, man, yes.
It's like, bye, Felicia. Enough of your nonsense.
I think when he comes on his state visit to Britain, I think we will more than likely, just for security's sake, we will be issuing the Queen with a taser.
You think he's gonna grab her by the pussy?
You probably should. I'll tell you what though, not Merkel, but the other, not Macron. What's yours? What's that lady? The run, yell, and tell lady?
Theresa May.
Oh, Theresa Run, Yell, and Tell May.
Which is rather an embarrassing name, because not so much now because the other lady has retired, but for some time there was actually a glamour model known as Theresa May, who was operating much at the same time as Theresa May was in politics.
Well, I'm sure I would prefer the model. I don't think much. I mean, your prime minister, I mean, she probably is a really good legislator or whatever, but I think she sucks. I just don't know much about y'all's process.
She has always been completely incompetent.
Thank you. Because it means more if you say it. Because I've seen some pieces you did on her. You weren't too generous with your with your.
No, she's completely useless, and I don't know if anybody picked up on Sargon. He had a stream with one or two other people yesterday, in which he was sort of saying, you know, what on earth is going on? Because a recent poll had come out, which had suggested that the lead that the Conservatives had now shrunk to 5%.
Yeah, he was saying, how could the Conservatives fuck this up? They literally could do nothing.
They were over 20% ahead before this began. And remember, nobody believes that the Labour Party has caught up with the Conservatives. Nobody actually thinks that Corbyn's charm has somehow managed to win that many people over. It is the fact that the Conservatives got too cocky. They thought, look, we're that far ahead. What we can do now is introduce some unpopular policies into our manifesto. And then we can claim that we have popular support for this once we get elected, and get some policies through which otherwise we would never get away with. The problem is, of course, people have cottoned onto it, and support for the Conservatives has just taken a nosedive.
That's
It's not a
interesting.
good move 2 weeks before the election.
Oh, my mic was on.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's shocking to me that career politicians haven't learned this lesson. You know, don't treat your constituents like they're fucking idiots. It will always come back to bite you.
Well, yes, but if you have someone at the helm who is not particularly, well, smart, then then that's the sort of thing you get. And Theresa May, for all the praise people have heaped on her, she is not a particularly good leader. She's not a particularly good politician.
And man, since you're being so honest about the head of your country, I'm just going to say, when I watch this, and I hope I don't get no trouble for this, it'll be short. I think this is fair use. Fair use, you daggone bastards. Don't strike this down. This is a good little episode here. But you can see Trump. Watch his mannerisms right here. You can see him with the blue tie. See him put his hands out like that? Let's just break down his, his mannerisms. You've seen him like put his hands out like in a gesture of, hey, I'm here, come supplicate to me. And now he's looking, his eyes right on. He tried to go this way. Now, in his mind, with all due respect, I can almost hear him saying, this bastard snubbed me. Surely he was supposed to come and kiss my ring. Why did he snub me this way? I will, and then you can see he's very stiff, which he always is. Have you ever seen him try to dance? Oh my goodness, when he's with the Arabs and he had this, and now look, see how it's like, and I really feel like that is just in my heart, as much as I love to see that, I do feel like he is the kind of guy that if you slight him in his mind, he's gonna do whatever he could do to slight you back. And there was a good example of it to
Actually,
me,
I think that was a joke. I actually think because because the media have so closely been focusing on how Trump shakes hands with people, I think in that regard, I think Trump pretty much just made a joke, as in basically sort of saying, look, we both know that everybody's going to be watching this. Let's do something completely stupid.
Well, I can't even, because right here it says in the
If you look at
Washington
his
Post.
reaction at the end, if you look at that smile that he gives at
Right.
the end of it, it seems to suggest that that was a joke.
Yeah, Trump might have been making a joke, but Macron, or that was Macron, right, that he was shaking hands with?
Yes, yeah.
Macron, he was not in on the joke. He about got yanked off his feet. I mean, Trump definitely sprung something on him.
It's hard for me to tell, and I'll be honest, after thinking about it that way, it is possible that these two got together and was like, because this is right here, it's saying that Emmanuel Macron was warned, and this is coming from the Washington compost pile. So there's a possibility that they're, that they spread this as their own personal little inside joke. Hey, let's make it a big old thing just to draw attention to us. That's
It's like
like
they
shocked
do-
me.
Do you think that they would extend an olive branch though, because they are so ideologically opposed? Like
Well,
like Trump
yeah.
might, 'cause, he's a
I
swinging.
think they would. I think they would, because whether they personally get on with each other or whether they support each other's politics, in the end, they have to do business with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And also remember that America and France have been working back channels with each other for a long time, Britisher.
Yeah. Well, yeah, in America and France is
know.
actually America's first ally. And people think it was
If it
Britain.
much.
wouldn't be the French, for the French, then there wouldn't be that flag that person is waving about there.
That's
Exactly.
correct.
Yep.
Wouldn't be there.
Yes, but of course, if it wasn't for America, that flag behind you would be far more German.
Well, look. All right, move along. Because we got in that discussion.
You have a point there, yes.
But we got in that discussion. I'm here to tell you that it seems to me, as an American, that what the United States did was they waited for a long time. Everybody was softened up. They rolled in there, grabbed the glory, and we still have and anyway, I'm not so sure
No,
that
that's
they would be
actually
speaking
just,
German. I
that's
think that they
in-
would have had to kill every last British that there was. So I don't think
We actually were getting our ass kicked when we first went in. I mean, we were getting crushed. It wasn't until we turned our entire industry.
Rommel hurt us bad in the desert. The Desert
Oh,
Fox.
dude, Rommel
put
was
us-
a badass.
Yeah, he was the man.
I wanted to ask Britisher. I didn't want to derail too much.
No, go ahead, man. We can talk about anything.
Well, regarding Theresa May, why has Article 50 not been activated yet? What the hell is taking so long?
Well, it has been activated.
Well, but I mean, what's the process? Why Britain is still in the EU? Yes.
Yes, because once Article 50 is activated, but you have to first understand that as such, there is no detailed process because no one else has ever done it yet. So there was some little paragraph, that was kind of put into some original treaty way back when, but it was kind of placed there as an afterthought. It's
no one
now
thought
that we
that would happen.
Yes, precisely. So now that it's actually happening, we are looking at only sort of, 2 or 3 lines in the actual, treaties of the European Union. So as such, what it says is that there's like a sort of divorce period of about 2 years in which the nation that leaves can kind of, disentangle itself from the European Union, because you have to understand that this affects every level of law and the economy and everything. So this is not just a simple process of we've pressed the button, we're walking away now, because there are too many things that are kind of interlinked that need to be disentangled. It's as if you would suddenly say, California is leaving the United States. It would be so interlinked with everything else that it wouldn't be able to do it within within a week.
I'm sorry, I missed that last part. I was fantasizing about California.
You see the double thumbs up? Cal exit, baby. Wall that shit off. No, I'm just joking. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, get him out of
Yeah, wall it off.
But no, I think you understand what I mean. So at the moment, there's the process allows for 2 years, but it can be further extended. So it may, in fact, even take longer than 2 years. once it has actually been being launched, and as such, that has actually taken place. So the time is, the clock is ticking.
So do you
But-
think that the next prime minister will actually be the one to negotiate the final kind of outing?
Yes, yeah, and the understanding is really so far that it would be Theresa May. And of course, she was hoping she could get herself a whopping big majority so she couldn't be held to ransom by the people on the very right of her party. If she doesn't necessarily need their votes, then she won't be dragged too far into the extremes and can sort of come to some reasonable understanding with the European Union. But for that, she needs a fairly decent majority.
So given that the next prime minister will be making such an important thing, this seems to be a very important election coming up.
It is a extremely important election, yes.
So does that mean the Russians are going to hack it?
Do you mean to say they haven't already?
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if you realize this. I've learned this from the Britisher. They don't have set elections. Did you know that, Logical?
What, Britain?
Yeah, they actually call for an election. And the prime minister, like just what happened with Cameron, or whatever the hell his name was, he stepped down when the Brexit came about. He was like, well, obviously I thought it was we were going to remain, and we didn't, so I'm outie. And then they had automatically had an election, and then because once they elect, let me just put it really quickly and see if the British are correct, because I want to be able to remember this, Brit, so I want to say it. What happens is the people elect the MPs, the members of parliament, and then the members of parliament among themselves elect the prime minister. And the prime minister serves, see, that way, that person, the prime minister, is elected some way by the people, but the fickle whims of the mob don't necessarily dictate who is going to be in control. And that also said that person can leave, or I believe British or stay as long as they pretty much want.
Well, I mean, as long as they have the support of Parliament, yes, they can stay. Yes, if the prime minister steps down and says, well, look, I don't want this job anymore, then the MPs will simply choose another one among their own.
Interesting.
So we don't have sort of presidential style elections. People vote for parties, or particularly they tend to vote for individual constituency members of parliament.
Which would explain why there's so many parties in Britain versus the two-party system that we have.
Oh, I mean, Britain is actually quite streamlined compared to most
France.
European countries.
Like that France, how many was it this election that went down to the wire at the end? There was like 5 or, yeah, there's a lot. But so in Britain, again, just to clarify for him, it's Labour and what are the two major ones?
The Labour Party and the Conservatives.
Wow, I feel like we're in a like a civics class now. But then that's cool. I just wanted you to know, because Logical, I thought the same thing. I thought, well, surely every set amount of years and then every certain amount of time they kick them out, and you can't be the prime minister anymore. No. Once prime minister is chosen, as long as Parliament continues to say we would like this prime minister here, but and I don't think they have to call an election list
until the next election comes along.
Oh.
So basically, we do have elections. So at least every 5 years there must be an election.
Okay. See, that's the part of the puzzle that I must have either forgotten or was missing. So there is a set time when Parliament must elect, either to keep the one that they have, but there is no limit on that term.
As we have had with this time, the Prime Minister, given certain circumstances, as long as Parliament agrees, can call for an election earlier. Because this time around, it's only been about been about 1.5 to 2 years since the last election. And she called this election because she thought, hang on, the Labour Party are in such disarray, I think I might win in a landslide here.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's what they do, bro. That's what I wanted you to understand. And then, so you're all, remember this too, they don't have set times for, like, we know when the election's going to be for presidents, senators, representatives, all that stuff. But there, it now starts at 5, unless they call for another one when the last prime minister leaves. So it's not at a set even time. It could be any time of the year. So I
that's
think
actually
it would save a lot of money.
If a prime minister leaves, then strictly speaking, we don't need any election at all, because then the party that has the majority can simply among themselves appoint another MP, another prime minister. So then there wouldn't be an election. So that's how Theresa May became prime minister. There wasn't an election. Cameron resigned.
Glory be.
And the Tories, who had the majority in Parliament, just basically said, okay, who is it to be?
Did Cameron fuck a pig?
Yeah, pig's face in front of his buddies.
There is a rumor that he did.
No, it's written down in a book by a lord. You probably know his name, Brett.
Yes, but he basically just quoted the rumor.
Well, he said he was there. He was a member of that club. He said he did it too.
I don't think he did. No, I don't think he referred to his being there.
Okay, what's his name again? Because I got to research this now, because I'm only going by what somebody told me. That's so I can't argue this. I got to read it now. I got to make sure.
I'm trying to think what his name is.
We'll
He was quite well known because he did a lot of funding for the Conservative Party.
And wasn't he like a playboy?
Yeah, Porky Pig was his name?
Well, the one thing, I think it's almost indisputable to say that they do this ritual. It's just like Skull and Bones. Listen, I hate to break your heart, G.W. Bush lovers, but he laid in a casket, masturbated to completion while he confessed all his sexual desires to the people watching. That's what he did. He was also known as the Little Devil because he was the shortest one of his class in that thing.
Well, now that one I would believe.
That's a fact. That's just part of their ritual, and they do other stuff. I think that's one of the weirdest, though. Laying in a casket and just, I don't know. Teach their own, though. Hey, maybe I'd get off on it. I don't know. But anyway, these people, and there's a reason, right? Because you can learn this lesson the way I've learned it a few times. If you trust somebody and you don't have a way of knowing if you can trust them, it could come back to bite you. You might find out that this trust was misplaced, and then depending upon how you went about it, you may find yourself trying to figure out where did it go wrong. Because I remember it's Trump, man. We were talking about Trump. He was like, every president says there's gonna be no leaks in the White House. That is fucking hilarious. They're sitting there talking about state and this and that, and they say it's a closed room. They think that the maid doesn't know how to hear everything. The butler, the president's personal butler, he knows what it sounds like when the man takes a dump. He knows everything. He knows what the first lady and the president are arguing about. They know everything. That White House has ears, and it also has a mouth. Anyway.
Well, and everyone has staff too. That's the problem. There's like 36,000 people employed by the Congress for some ridiculous amount.
What, of course, you forget is that I am one of the people who is on the inside track here. I am one of the people who knows everything, because according to a comment in my recent clip, and this means that I've really joined an august club, I am now a member of the Illuminati.
You are somebody was seriously saying that? Please, Britisher, share that if you can copy and paste it. I would love that.
Well, no, I've not got it. Problem finding it again in all those comments is almost impossible. But no, it is in there. I didn't delete it. But if you want to take the time to look through it, but apparently the reason that I am Illuminati is because my avatar wears a monocle.
Oh, because it's one eye. Because it's the one eye.
And apparently the monocle is a dead giveaway that I am a member of the Illuminati.
Oh, mercy. I'm waiting for me. I'm like putting it out there. You know how I end my thing every day, and every time I've always at least mentioned Sir Sidney Rough Diamond. And then if somebody wonders about that reference, they can go back and see me going, "Hey, Sir Sidney Rough Diamond, how's it going, brother Roe, man? We're going to take over the world, homeboy." Whatever, everything I can think of. And it's like no one has even said a mumbling word to me about being an Illuminati, which I'm not, and I do believe they're real. I just think it's fun to mock them. I got a Moloch pin on my suit jacket, too. That's a solid gold
Illuminati, and I am really sort of in with the in crowd who runs the entire planet.
Hey, man, can I borrow 100 grand, Britt, since you're up there on top now?
I wonder why I am bothering running a YouTube channel.
Britisher, to be honest with you, my friend, I actually thought you were the Monopoly guy with a shave and on Safari.
No, he's an MI6 robot, Model 69, runs on WD-40.
If I suddenly go off air, And you wonder what has happened. It was also that there was one guy who seemed to be, let's just say, of Asian extraction, who was encouraging people to complain to the police about my last video.
Asian meaning East or
What?
West?
Are you serious?
Yes, I am.
That's what we should talk about.
I am assuming that would more than likely mean that he already has complained. But that doesn't necessarily mean they'll take him seriously.
Well, I've watched that video a couple times. Not sure what you said that could have been in any way police worthy, so to speak.
Oh, I am racist. I am Islamophobic. I am just about everything.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure.
Go ahead.
About this, man. And I don't understand. I've only kind of have a limited understanding of like Canadian free speech versus UK free speech. I mean, it doesn't even compute to me. I mean, this is like something that's foreign. I'm like what other? They don't have free speech. And
No.
I've kind of got that over the last couple of years, I guess. But just this fundamental, it's so ingrained in us as Americans that we just can say what we want, that we take it for granted, man. And it's becoming like a really big deal, I think. Go ahead.
And as far as the heritage is concerned, you would think that you have it because you are effectively derived from the very culture that is us.
The Magna Carta, right? I mean, that's
Precisely.
kind of...
But yes, you have to understand that, yeah, we have got a political class over here that has kind of a mind of its own. And when it comes to the overwhelming majority of the people, you would more than likely just have free speech. But
Yeah,
when you look at every single one of these lobby groups, which always put out nice little essays which begin with the sentence, "Oh, I fully support free speech, but."
That's conjuncture.
Yeah, given that they have so much clout in this country, that, yes, is just one of the reasons that one has never really sort of fully allowed it, or at least one has severely clamped down on it, because chances are 100 years ago there was much greater free speech over here than there is now.
And so, Britisher, look, I've just applied to Cambridge to be their new professor of fun. Well, let's say that the new the chair of fun. And so I've applied there, and they're looking at other people, and I get a letter from Cambridge, and it says, "Dear Mr. Ogre, we've reviewed your application and looked at your references, and we are so impressed with your musical abilities. Your acting talents are second to none, and sir, we just think your beard is magnificent. But do I even have to read the rest of the letter?"
Not really.
Nah, I could honest to goodness, without reading another word, take that and just put it in the trash and forget about Cambridge, couldn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, so every time I hear that, and you know what? It seems like people that are intentionally trying to mislead in some way or another, they're like the Milo Toolkit we had privy to, that David Brock handbook from Media Matters. That's how they start. It's like, Britisher, you're a really nice guy, and of course, I wouldn't want to see you go to prison for 5 years and get beaten half to death by Muslims because you were in there for racist things, but... And you're like, oh, whoa, really?
Yeah. I think, if you're sort of wondering, it's not as if I'm really worried with this, because when it comes to something like Count Dankula,
that's kind of what I was thinking. I saw Ogre's video.
That is ridiculous, but at least it is within territory where you can sort of see people's heckles going up. Whereas if it's just a matter of, I have put forward an opinion, it would be much, much harder to in any way get any case going against one.
It's just, I mean, it's so foreign to me that I would not be able to speak my mind. I mean, I can't, like me getting kicked off of Facebook, which I'm locked out because I've refused to submit my info. I changed my name after 9 years to Deplorable. My name was my name, and then I changed it to Deplorable, and out of there. So, because I was getting effective and I was getting hits and stuff like that, they hit me with their terms of service on a name change. And then I go to Twitter and experience that kind of in a different way. I don't want to get into that, but I did experience getting kicked out of Twitter and stuff. And it's really, I got back in on Twitter, but besides the point, it's definitely an issue. And I mean, it hurts just getting kicked off of Twitter. I can't imagine my own country telling me that I can't speak my mind. And it's just, I think that's why if you see my little icon, right, I just did it on my phone. It's just a hashtag 1A. It's like, that to me is the most important, precious right we have. It's how we can stop war. It's how we can solve problems. You know what I mean? And then if you try
I full well know what you mean.
Oops, sorry, I didn't hear you.
I full well know what you mean. I mean, you know, I have, before I did this, I was kind of very much sort of involved in, you know, with people who were kind of trying to stop censorship and stuff like that over here. And it is an absolutely thankless task because it is so ingrained within the upper echelons of society that this is the thing you do, that they just cannot seem to comprehend that if you actually come to them with just solid arguments and just go, you have no reason to do this, you have no evidence that this does any harm, why should people not be able to speak their mind? And what they do is they come forward with these kind of hypotheticals. Oh, but what if there are some people who might do something silly because they read this? And you go, so hang on a moment, you know, so you're not even saying that it does cause harm, or that but it just might. And just on the basis of that, they feel entitled. And of course, what it always boils down to is that they're actually banning things that they personally don't like. But it is always for the greater good.
It's always control. They'll lie to you and tell you it's for the greater good, but it's only for control. I mean, if these vultures running our country right now could take it away from us, they'd do it. But we got this other thing called number 2. Number 2, just as good as number 1, and they're like married. You cannot.
Well, that one old daggone gnarled up lady, Feinstein was like, you know, if I had the votes in Congress, I'd be saying, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them in.
Turn them all in.
Turn them in. And listen, look, if you think, Clint, the down under, they always point to that and they say, oh, look, they rounded up the, you know, you remember some guy with ears like this is like, they rounded up the guns down there and it really seemed to work really well. So maybe we should round up the, you know, it's just common sense, people. It's just, and listen, what happened is, if you look into the fact that Crocodile Dundee, the man that was modeled after, he lived in the outback. They came to get his rifle from him, and he was like, good day, get the fuck out, you know, and they killed him. Yeah. So they don't want to mention that they still have guns, and, you know, whatever. I didn't really want to make this all about Second Amendment, but I will say I was listening to Crowder, and he's all right. I won't mock him today. But he was saying that they're in a good order, and Gavin McGinnis was saying they're in a good order because it's just the way it is, and that Second Amendment is pretty important.
Yeah. What about repercussion? What about repercussions for speech? For example, you go on a tirade on Facebook, a racist or whatever, an actual racist tirade, where you're saying some pretty stupid shit. Your boss reads it and fires you.
It's your ass.
All right, cool.
Hey, the way I look at it is, I employ people from time to time, and around the farm, I'm putting up a fence right now by myself, and I'm thinking I might go uptown and see if somebody's hanging around, ain't got nothing to do, and I just give them. But I make my own decision. I could fire anybody, and I have. If I'm paying somebody and they ain't working, I don't care. And I'm not the kind of person. If I found out you did something like whatever, insert thing here, that was words, I would laugh, is what I would do. Right. But you know, if you're lazy, I'll fire your ass. I'll pay you whatever you got coming in by.
It's frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating to hear advocates of free speech take umbrage with employers or when there's repercussions for speech. Now, I'm not talking about state-sponsored or state-backed, like in the case of Dangula. No. Obviously, that's beyond the pale and should never happen.
Well, and if you have a contract, the employer would have to pay off the contract, but most of it is at-will employment. So if you're at-will employment, that means it's at my will. If I don't will no more, you get to get out on the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.
Exactly. You don't have a right to have a job from someone indefinitely until you decide you don't.
Well, and I would go this far too. You also have the right not to sell a pizza to somebody because you don't agree with them or whatever, and you shouldn't be ostracized. Well, if the community wants to do it, but there's been cases where they've just fined people for this in the United States. And place in Pennsylvania wouldn't supply pizza to a gay wedding. And somebody pointed out, gay people don't get pizza for their weddings, man. It was a setup. You got to go to Dearborn, Michigan, like Steven Crowder has done, since I mentioned him earlier. Go into the Muslim places and say, I want a cake for some queers. And they'll be like, Akadaka, get out. They won't negotiate with you. And why is no one? There's nothing there. I guess that'd be Islamophobia. It's a painting you in the corner is what it is. They've engineered these words to make us feel bad.
That video is great, man. That's one of his finest works, probably.
Finest moments.
over here in Northern Ireland, there was a case where a gay couple was kind of preparing for their marriage. They went to a bakery who wouldn't make them a gay wedding cake or something like that. Or it may even have been, I'm not sure if I'm misremembering this, it may even have been a cake with some kind of gay slogan on it, if you know what I mean. Sort of gay political slogan, I'm not sure. But anyway, they refuse. They say, look, we're not doing this. We're a traditional Christian family bakery. This is not for us. And of course, immediately they went running to their solicitors and organized a court case and won. And you just thought, well, was that really so necessary? Couldn't you have just gone to a different bakery?
Yeah,
it's not about that though.
Can I get a little heady on on this subject? Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution. It's typically called the Contract Clause. The last section of that says that no state shall pass a law or ex post facto, whatever, shall pass a law impairing the obligation of contracts or granting the title of nobility. Now, the contracts thing is the big deal, because as soon as the state steps in a situation where a business owner is denying service to someone for any reason, the minute the state steps in and says, no, you are obligated by law to serve this contract, they have violated that section of the Constitution. The Constitution specifically says the state cannot be involved in contracts between private parties, except in the case where the contract has been violated. Now, if you are not accepting someone as a customer, you have not established a contract with them. You have not said, I will sell you 3 apples for $3. You're saying, I don't want to sell you my apples. You cannot be compelled to do that legally. And yet it happens. These fucking laws saying, oh, if you don't want to sell to gay people, you're going to be fined. We're going to shut you down. No.
Or if you're a pagan and you're trying to, a Christian's trying to buy your apples, fuck that Christian. I got to stand and play the devil's advocate, because I believe in such a wide range of freedom that no matter what I believe, I don't care if you're Buddhist, whatever. If I come to your store and you don't like my beard, you have the right. Everywhere I go around here, there's a sign hanging on the wall, and it says this: we reserve the right. And I'm talking about the restaurants, the little store, everything. They all have the sign. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone.
Yeah. No shoes, no shirt, no service.
Well, they all have that on the door too. You're right. That's on the door every place.
Basic principle.
That's it. And I've seen it happen. I've seen people. There's a bar or two that I may or may not. I can go there sometimes, but there's times where I stroll in there and I'd be like, "Get out," just because maybe I smell a little bit like gin and tonic. And I understand. No hard feelings. I go back when I'm sober and get a hamburger.
Well, yeah, but over here, when this case came up, there were actually some people sort of arguing, well, look, where exactly is the limit of this? Because if someone comes in, with swastika tattooed on his forehead, and sort of says, I want a cake, and I want this cake for the birthday of Adolf Hitler, and it has to say Sieg Heil, long live Hitler, and have swastikas on it.
It's up to the owner.
Are you really telling me that a baker can't say, no, I'm not doing that?
Yes, that's the perfect example right there. That's it, man.
Well, the problem is, and here's the big problem. If you say that, they say, well, you're a racist, you're defending Nazis. I guess maybe that's why somebody was talking to you, British, because that's just a logical way to look at it. That is the fact. Because if you put the shoe on the other foot, it never holds water, man. The bucket's got to hold.
The Britisher is on to something, and not only just with the business, take it a step further. Let's take it to its logical conclusion. What's the difference between a private business and a private home? If you are not allowed to refuse entrance / service to your private business, couldn't the same argument with the same logic be made to enter your home, whether or not you allow it? No, I don't want gays in my house. Oh, too bad. Now they get to come in, or whatever.
Well,
you know,
actually, there has been some cases like that here in Britain. Because, I mean, I don't know how widespread this is in America, you know, the bed and breakfast phenomenon, whereby people may have a house, but they perhaps let out 2 or 3 rooms.
It's at the top of the bell, but it did explode about 5-6 years ago at Apex.
I mean, over here, it's a quite traditional sort of, you know, industry, really. You know, every town will have quite a few bed and breakfasts where people like lorry drivers and whatever stop off for the night, you know. And very often these kind of places may be run by a little old lady, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And in some, you know, some cases have emerged where basically a gay couple turns up and you've just basically got the little old lady saying, no. You know, because she's not a hotel. You know, she's not a big hotel with 400 rooms. This is actually her home. And she doesn't want to gay guys doing their stuff in her house. And you just feel, okay, I can actually understand that.
Yeah, because the lorry drivers probably don't want it either.
But once again, that was then overruled by the courts. As in, no, if you run a B&B, you must accept this.
Well, what if I like to shoot heroin in my jugular vein right here at dinner time to get my appetite going? Does that mean that they can't discriminate against me because I'm a junkie and I just want to put a spike in my throat right here in front of everybody at the dinner table and get my appetite on?
That'd be breaking a law.
Oh, man, but so, you know, homosexuality used to be illegal. We should make it legal. I mean, that's fucked up that you would try to, you know, ostracize
it's just
me.
that thing, isn't it? That basically it's not just a matter of just liberalizing things and allowing homosexuality, which is, I think, where most people sort of thought, well, that would be it. But no, it kind of became very militant. And then one kind of forces it onto people on, you know, no one ever thought of those people when these liberalizations were brought in. No one considered, well, what about the little Christian old lady who goes to church every week and runs a little B&B and perhaps doesn't want 2 gay guys in her house?
Or maybe they thought about them and wanted to do that to them, Britisher.
Sorry?
Or maybe they thought exactly about them kind of people and wanted to do this to them. So they either had to shut down or just take it in their face.
Oh, I mean, it became quite a militant thing in that way, just as you say. But when originally, you know, liberalization of homosexuality was introduced, everyone just thought, fine, that's okay. So now no one is criminalizing the gays. That's perfectly fine with everybody. But it's when it was kind of rammed home in that regard of sort of trying to sort of, you must accept everything we want. That's when I think people got their heckles up.
Got to watch your phrasing with the
True, yes. It just shows what for an innocent mind I have.
Not me, but it's funny that, because now this is the thing. They take it other steps further. Because I would say the same, and I got to put the shoe on the other foot like I did before. So if you have a pagan person that you know, worships on Samhain and Saturnalia, and Ishtar worship, all these things, has all these, and they're Wiccan, whatever you want to say. And then this Christian old lady's on vacation now with their old man, some really uptight British people from the C of E that know every hymn in the hymn book, you know what I mean, Britisher?
Yep.
Anyway, and they're there, and when they get there, you know, they're all down their nose, but they still want a room. They should, you know, what's going to happen there? If they tell them to get out, would anybody come to these people's aid and succor and say, no, you got to give them a room?
I think they would have much greater trouble getting support in that regard. Yes, because they're too mainstream. they won't have a lobby that will be sort of active on their behest, if you know what I mean. But since we're talking sort of a fundamental rights, perhaps this is the place to kind of segue into that conundrum I touched upon, and that is that when it comes to you know, basic fundamental rights, which are in America guaranteed in the Constitution, one of the things that is guaranteed in the Constitution is, in a way, freedom from discrimination on the grounds of religion.
That's correct.
But you know, when you look at the situation when it comes to Islam, are we not faced with a situation where perhaps it is now actually time to start discriminating against that particular religion, so that we single them out, and that we, for example, can say that they can't immigrate?
Well, that wouldn't apply because the
Oh,
Constitution.
I see how you did that. I see how you did that, Brett. Let me think about that while he answers it.
The Constitution, the Constitution only protects American citizens. It only applies to American citizens. So if you're talking about someone coming to America, they are not covered by the Constitution. Therefore, they don't fall under the clause that their particular religion would be, you know, sacrosanct or whatever. So it's completely fine to ban a particular religion from entering the country, but you can't do anything to the American citizens already in the country. That's at least where I sit on the fence.
Well, that's exactly what I would say.
So do we know what the situation is regarding the travel ban?
Well, hang on. And Clint, did you want to say something also on the end of that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just like Clint, because I know he wanted to say something on that end, and you can go deeper too, because he said my piece. I don't have anything else to add to that. It only applies to American citizens.
Okay, just fundamentally think about this for a second. Back in the day, and I got criticized for this by a libertarian, I was tweeting about this because I learned this, I didn't even know it. Back in the 50s, and I was just trying to find it, okay? Back in the 50s, or 40s to 60s, somewhere in that zone in America, we had an act to suppress the immigration of communism into our land. And communism, obviously, is not a religion. So there is like loophole-y, lawyerish things that we may be able to do. It's not based on the religion, but if you focus on the ideology and come up with a way to, you know, background check, or if you don't have these things, we won't let you in. If you don't have this, if you have, you know what I mean? There's got to be a sane way to go about stopping this ideology and looking at it as an ideology, not as a religion. I mean, it is a religion. If we let you in, you can practice, you know what I mean? That we won't stop you, but letting them in, the individual, see if there's any way to determine whether this individual could terroristic version of Islam.
All right.
Can I put it like this? In order to try and give you an example that kind of shows you in the American context what sort of conundrum we've got over here, and that is, imagine that you would have a series of terrorist attacks that seem to come about from citizens, American citizens, who live in Dearborn, Michigan. Now, what do you do? Because, as I say, the Constitution would basically prevent you from in any way discriminating against this particular group.
This just happened to you, Brett, because the gentleman that apparently blew himself up at the concert was a citizen born there.
Precisely.
So I got to say this. It's not only is it not an easy one, but I would use Occam's razor in my mind. If I was benevolent dictator of the world, this is the way it would be. If you were doing a call to action through use of old religious tomes that made it feasible for young people to be forgiven of the raucous life they've lived after they've been made to feel guilty by their spiritual leaders, that if only they would go and kill some young girls out for the night to enjoy a wee bit of pop music, that they would go to heaven and get 72 virgins and everything would be, as long as you were using it in that way, that would be absolutely forbidden. And it wouldn't be something that would just be done by me as benevolent dictator of the world. It would be something that the community would have to say, listen, until you reform, you can't do it this way. You can preach your book and say hypothetically this, hypothetically that. When you're doing this actively, you're not welcome here.
May I answer British's question?
Yeah, that's what I tried to just do too, I hope.
You asked what the status is right now of the travel ban, and currently it is stuck in court because Trump is a nice guy. And the reason why I say that is because the judicial branch's responsibilities, or what they're charged with in the Constitution, is to make sure that laws passed by Congress obviously don't contradict the Constitution. But there's a problem in that the judiciary has no authority to enforce its rulings. It has no actual power. It's a guide for Congress. And Trump, because it's an executive order and it's not a law passed by Congress, if he really wanted to, he could tell the courts to fuck off, because they've got no actual way to enforce it. And especially since it's not a law passed by Congress, which means the legislative branch doesn't have the onus to enforce the judiciary's ruling. So it doesn't matter what they say. He could seriously say, fuck off, Muslims are banned.
Yep. And
Sorry,
and this is like, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No.
Okay. Yes, that he's playing nice. I mean, it's driving me crazy. Okay, watching him, he's doing the right thing. He's playing the right cards, but he could go nuts. Like, they're calling him a dictator and stuff, and he's actually playing pretty nice with them. That's my point.
Well, with you see, the reason I brought this up was not just because of the Manchester case, but because most of these attacks are really being executed by people who are sort of second or third generation in Europe. And
Yes,
that is why I sort of said, look, we may have to look at the concept of discriminating on the basis of religion, because you know, something has to be done in order to stop this. Just holding vigils and minute silences and putting up, you know, I love Manchester on Twitter is not really going to change anything. At some point, we need to start doing something about it. And in all fairness, which group are we going to have to do something about? Do you understand what I mean? So even if, you know, even though the overwhelming majority of Muslims is perfectly peaceable, there is absolutely no way of denying that these extremists are coming from within those communities. So something in that regard needs to be done.
Well,
but that would mean that one would act only against that particular group, which of course would immediately be described as, oh, this is Islamophobia, you are victimizing a particular religion.
Well, let's everybody remember that we have Muslims here called the Nation of Islam, led by a man named Louis Farrakhan, and he has changed his tune in a lot of ways. He's reformed because he's the leader here. And in the old days, he was like white devils. He'd still be like white devils, but he says that's a mentality, and even black people could be white devils. I love Louis Farrakhan. If you haven't watched any of his sermons, please go do it, man. He's a motivational speaker from doggone heaven. So anyway, we have an example, Britisher, of this thing reformed and in action, because I don't know, man, when the last time, like, you know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar looking dude, you know who he is, the basketball player, he's Muslim, he's Nation of Islam. He reads the Quran, prays 5 times, the whole 9 yards. I can't imagine him like Allahu Akbar, boom, or anybody like from the hood that's the Nation of Islam. So we have an example of that reformation, and it can happen. But I'm with you, man. It's hard for me to utter this.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to discriminate against people, or people get blown up. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, the whole.
Oh, sorry.
Just saying Muhammad Ali, yes, Louis Farrakhan, and you could say, I mean, some of the stuff he says may be construed as racist. It's still free speech. He's still allowed to say it. And the Louis Farrakhan thing is very interesting. People, I mean, I don't know whether I like him or not, but I have more respect. If you go watching his videos and stuff, he actually did kind of turn on Obama pretty good, and it was very logical in his thinking on that. But yeah, you never see that. You never see the Nation of Islam committing, as far as I can see. It's not real visible if it is.
No, he did take Obama to the woodshed, and I'm not just trying to hammer on. I'm just saying that we have this example because, I mean, there's no need for, and they read the same book. If you read the Bible, you can read a lot of different books and say, oh, because I follow this person, I've got to kill this person. But just that makes you a jerk. It doesn't make you. It makes you a zealot.
It makes you a loser in life, like our boss. You're a loser in life. You scumbag. You failed.
How do you feel about that language, Brett? How do you feel about him using good old boy language like that makes me
feel
if I
could jump in real quick before we transition too much, because I actually have Britisher. You also asked what can we do as Americans. We have what's called the Espionage Act, which was from 1916 or 17. It was right before the First World War. There was a case that challenged that, saying whether or not First Amendment protects speech that would essentially advocate overthrowing the government, treason, as it were. It was Debs versus the United States, which I think was in 1920, something like that. But anyway. Oh, yeah, I always screw the dates up.
Google,
but anyway,
Google. It's not my brain, it's Google. In fact, it says Espionage Act of 1917, so they must have did it in 17 and got it passed in 18. Something.
Right. Well, the Debs versus the United States case basically said that if you're advocating the overthrow of the government, and I assume you're looking this up, please do, because this is all memory. I hope I don't get it wrong, but if memory serves, you can't advocate the overthrow of the government. That's not protected by the First Amendment, and you can be charged with treason or seditious behavior. The problem is, fast forward to modern day, people have this convoluted idea of what constitutes freedom of speech. Calling for the overthrow of the U.S. government, the killing of Trump, the bombing of the White House, these are not things that are protected by the freedom of speech, and yet we're not policing it. So you have Antifa, because they think what they're doing is protected under freedom of speech, and it is not.
Well, in all fairness, that in a way cuts both ways, though, doesn't it? Because, I mean, when Obama was still in the White House, there was quite a few people that were saying quite violent things about his White House.
Right, which is completely okay. But when it becomes actionable, when it's not just saying fuck Obama, someone should kill him, whatever. When it's inside a mosque, and this is actually, I got a little derailed there, but this is what I meant to go with. This was the mosque. The mosques are where we can deal with Muslim or Islam in America, or problematic Islam in America. Because if a mosque is preaching kill Westerners, death to America, America's the great Satan, boom, Espionage Act, shut that shit down. So that's how we handle the Muslims already here in America.
True, but as I say, I mean, most people who want to actually, blow things up, sadly don't make it quite that obvious, because of course the majority of the congregation won't really be interested in this.
But I guarantee you that if you polled all of the suicide bombers, not a single one of them came from a mosque that didn't advocate for blowing up buildings. They're getting their instructions or their definition, or work with me, brain, come on. They're getting whatever, their marching orders, the understanding of the Quran from the mosque, which is saying, it says go kill white.
But that's where I'm not sure that is actually what is happening. It could well be that they are meeting people at the mosque who are then, taking them to a private place and then indoctrinating them. But I don't really believe it. We know that some years ago it was happening as you described, but I don't think it's happening like this anymore now.
Gotcha.
Because
okay.
It would be too easy to pick up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point.
You may remember, what was he called? Abu Hamza, the guy with the hook hands, who eventually got extradited to America. I think he was active in some mosque in London somewhere, and I think the French Secret Service even warned the British several times. until eventually it became clear that it was an absolute hothouse of extremism. And it was around about that time that I think they realized they needed to start clamping down on what was going on in these mosques. But that means now that, of course, these terror cells know that they can't really be too overt anymore in the mosques, because otherwise it will be picked up.
Yeah, build a better mousetrap, you just attract a better mouse.
So yeah, you're now it's become less overt, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, the fact that it is in a way not the immediate immigrants, it tends very often to be their children or their grandchildren who become completely alienated and then end up being bombers. It just begs the question, you know, how on earth do you turn this ship around?
It seems like the hardest question to answer. I mean, it's like they're making it impossible for us to figure this out, and there's got to be a solution to it, right? And it's like putting all of our minds together. How the hell can you stop a dude with a bomb strapped on him? Watching, I see this.
Once he is a dude with a bomb strapped on, as you put it, he's pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah.
Because
all it takes is
there
one.
will always be a soft target which he can just go and blow up. You cannot protect the whole country.
And what's crazy is, like, you guys ever seen Godfather Part 2 where he goes to Cuba and it's during the 50s, during the revolution, and he watches that dude jump in a cab and blow up the cab and the cop or whatever?
Yeah.
It's like, that's kind of different than what, I mean, even that's horrible too, obviously, but that's kind of scenario, that's even different than what we're facing. I don't even know what is the point of going to a concert and blowing up a bunch of young girls and kids and stuff?
Well,
it's just insane.
One is deliberately getting more and more vicious. You know, the viciousness scale is clearly, you know, is going off the chart.
You made a comment. You said this on a previous stream, Britisher. I don't mean to cut you off, but you made this great point, and I assume this is where you're going. I want to kind of quote you on your other stream. You said that the viciousness is increasing while the tolerance, or let's say the tolerance is increasing, and yet the viciousness is also increasing. So we're more accepting of Islam in our Western cultures, yet they're killing us in higher numbers. Like it's counterintuitive.
It's not so much the tolerance toward Islam in general, you know, but generally the acceptance, you know, that racism and things like that have definitely decreased in the Western world. Over the last 20 years, things have become much more pleasant.
Right.
So it cannot really be attributed to racism or anything like that, because otherwise, if that were the case, then terrorism 20 years back would have been so much worse.
I think it's attributable to technology. I think 20 years ago, it was more difficult for them to be able to wreak havoc in Western areas because it was harder to get there, for one thing.
That is true, but there does seem to be something happening. If you look at the sort of the progression of terrorism, you know, okay, sort of look at 9/11, you slam an aeroplane into a building. Now, you know you're going to kill a lot of people, you know, but to a certain extent, it is kind of Nintendo death, isn't it? It's all an abstraction. It's a building.
Right.
But if you compare that with the Nice attack, where the guy drove a lorry and people said he was swerving the lorry, so he was kind of aiming it at people as they were trying to run out of his way.
Well, but even that is Nintendo.
He would see... Well, yes, but what I mean is it's on a personal level. He is aiming for people. He can see the mother with a child trying to get out of his way, and he swerves the truck in order to get them. And then the truck will bump under him as he goes over the bodies. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
It has a level. It's something visceral.
Right, and I'm taking it to the extreme of cutting someone's head off with a knife.
Yes, I mean, precisely. When you see those executions, and even that has now got worse.
Right.
You know, whereas
I mean,
it started with these people being beheaded with bread knives, and then you went on to seeing them, you know, crucifying people, and then hacking their arms off as they are crucified.
You know, porn
You know-
in the 1980s, there was not a lot of double penetration or airtight scenes.
What? Wow.
They're common now. And the reason for that is because you don't get the attention anymore that you would get for something that's so extreme, like, oh my God, she's taken how many dicks?
Hey, this is something completely different too. We drink actually cashew milk, Brett, not almond milk.
Okay.
Really?
Cashew milk. It's very good, very creamy.
Now, I throw that out there.
Porn, double penetration, like you mean like
No,
mouth
I
and
can
mouth
see
and
where you're
spoon or butt
going.
and
I can
poo?
see where you're going, but you need to get more extreme in order to basically to get the attention. That basically,
Yeah,
once something has
yes.
been done, just doing the same thing again won't get you the same attention.
Yes, the Manchester bombing stands out because of the target. Had it just been a shopping mall, we would have went, oh, another terrorist attack. If it wasn't a specifically targeting children, it wouldn't even make the news for more than 3 or 4 days.
dude, you got it.
Probably true.
That's a problem.
It's destroying my head, man. Like I'm sitting here listening to this, and it's working in a sense because I'm getting so pissed off. Not at you guys, obviously, but
it is working. It is working simply. It is working simply from the perspective that we are gradually beginning to turn our countries into police states with massive surveillance apparatuses,
Well,
looking over all of us.
It's the Hegelian dialectic because I mean I'm listening to you. I just watched a plane hit the
basically,
tower.
at the same time, we're having these vigils in which we're telling us they shall not change us, and you think, well, hang on a moment, they so clearly are changing us. We are all spending billions and billions on building these massive surveillance structures in order to try and catch these people.
Yeah.
You know,
we're essentially proving Benjamin Franklin exactly right. We are sacrificing our freedoms for security and still getting blown to shit.
Yeah. But as I say, at some point then you need to start saying, well, look, what is the source of this? Now, you know, to me, this feels very uncomfortable. You know, I am more than anything, compared to all three of you, a very, very wishy-washy liberal, you know. But even I must sort of say, at some point, you then need to start being consciously unfair, and you just need to start saying, okay, I completely accept that most Muslims are not involved with this, but it is coming from the Muslim society. So it is more than likely against Islam per se that we need to start, you know, need to start acting. And if it affects mainly innocent people, well, then so be it. Because, you know, trying to find this needle in a haystack has so far just simply not worked and shows no hope of working.
And I agree with that, but I at the same time we have to find some kind of loophole because I can't have my Constitution subverted. I can't have the First Amendment effed with. You know what I mean? There's got to be some other way. There's got to be some solution. I don't know what it is. It's not the surveillance state because that isn't worth a square piss. It's not.
Maybe if you rounded the people up that were doing this because what they understand, it's like, you know, how they understand things. So maybe if you round up the people that were involved in the bombing, like they already have, and then you lined them up in the street in front of that place and chopped their heads off and filmed it, and like, you know, for everybody to see, maybe that would make them start to realize that they should do that.
That's like Pepe the Frog.
That wouldn't have any effect. That won't have any effect because remember, I made this point last night. We're not dealing with Soviet Russia, where the threat of getting blown, you know, back to the Stone Age was a real threat. These people covet death. They want
their life sucks so bad they just
pray.
But
not only that, remember that then you are actually beginning to copy them.
Yeah.
Well, no, and I hope everybody knows that was a little satirical wit on my part. I don't think we should do that. I'm just saying that there's not much we can do, but I would say
that's the greater point.
That with the Espionage Act that you brought up from 1917, I was reading through that. No, if there's something that's doing this call to violence, that's not an abridgment of freedom of speech. That's just saying you can't want, and it is a religio-political movement. This Islam is, and
Yes.
we do have examples of it being reformed here. And so, I mean,
But-
something's got to happen.
That's
Yeah,
the
that's my
point.
point. That's my point. Is that it's not. I'm sorry. Make this point real quick, and then I'll shut up. The problem with Islam is that it's not just a religion. Christianity was a religion that
Correct.
happened to lead into policies of state. Islam is state wrapped in religion, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter. They're not. They're interconnected. You can't separate the two. And that's the problem.
It demands the merger of church and state.
Yes. Yeah, there can't be a separation of church and state because, and this is one thing that really pisses me off. When people,
in all fairness, I think there can be. I think there can be a separation of church and state in Islam, and I think it has been done.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But the big if there, though, Britisher, is if you're willing to disregard the rule book, because I always come back to that, the Quran, the Hadiths, etc. The rules of Islam say that you can't separate them. And the point I was going to make was what really bugs me tremendously is when people use the argument that Islam is a religion of peace, or that it's not Islam that's causing these things, because there are passages that say to kill an innocent person is worse than killing all the people on the planet, or something along those lines. And they point to this and they go, look, even the Quran and the Hadith and all these things, they say it's bad to hurt innocent people. But what we have to understand is that we're not talking about the same terms. When they say innocent person, they're referring to someone who is a part of their specific sect of Islam.
Well, yes,
but you're not innocent if you don't believe in Islam. You're not innocent.
When you say they, who do you mean by they?
They, the Tafir, whatever the people that blow themselves up in buildings, they have the most strict.
That's precisely. But given that there are 1.5 billion Muslims, and that 1.5 billion Muslims are not currently all rushing towards us with rusty knives trying to gouge our eyes out, it would mean that most Muslims don't actually interpret these lines that way. So it is clearly, so it is clearly possible not to interpret it that way.
Well, Britisher, I would just say this then. Listen, then in World War II, since only 100,000, I don't know, since there was only a small percentage of United States people that actually went to war, would you see where I'm going with this? Would you say that the rest of them were absolutely didn't want to fight? So just saying that, no, when you have a percentage of them already doing it, but you got to ask. Hang on a second. You got to ask the individual Muslim, and it is a staggering figure. What do you think about? Yeah, and that's a conservative one. That's a conservative. Some people say it's as high as 92. But you have to ask them, what do you think about this happening? And if no one was doing it, would you do it? If you get deep into there, you find out that there is an active connivance.
With your analogy, it would effectively mean that the extremists are fighting on behalf of the others.
Absolutely, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Yes, that's what's happening.
But they're not. And the reason why they're not is because they're killing other Muslims. They're not fighting on behalf of Muslims. They're fighting on behalf of
people they're killing are other Muslims.
Yes, their particular sect. But Britisher, I have to counter where you're saying most Muslims don't have a problem. Most Muslims aren't blowing themselves up. Yeah, that's true. But most Germans weren't members of the Nazi Party. It didn't have an impact on what happened to the Jews. So the moderates don't matter. There was a great, I wish I could remember her name. She basically answered that question about, well, there's 2 billion Muslims in the world, and only
when you say the moderates don't matter, I understand from what angle you're coming from, but please understand my angle, and that is the moderates matter insofar that it proves that the scriptures can be interpreted in a different way. So when one says, oh, well, this is how the scriptures, this is how they interpret the lines, you just go, well, who are they? Because the overwhelming majority of them don't interpret it that way, because otherwise they would be acting upon it.
See, I don't agree with that at all, because according to, are you familiar with the website Religion of Peace? It's a website that brings together all polls of essentially Islam from around the world.
Yep.
They do polls, Gallup polls, what other polls, et cetera. And this website brings them all together so that we can get kind of an at a glance view. They also have all the terrorist attacks, et cetera. Worldwide, a vast majority of people share the same views as the really extremist ones, except obviously in cases where they believe that it's acceptable to blow up
But
other Muslims.
if
That's
I could
about
just
the
jump
only
in,
area that's yeah. Please do.
a third of Muslims in England believe that, well, not believe, but wouldn't turn a member of their family in if they were like
Yes. No, I have seen those. I have seen those statistics. Yes, I'm familiar with them.
I
that's
just
my
wanted to
point.
bring
That's
that
my
up, but
ultimate-
Lime can
yeah.
continue.
What I mean is, we do need to, and this is not me trying to make an excuse, we do need to question sort of the methodology of those sort of polls, because one needs to wonder whether they are actually giving their honest opinion or whether they are giving the opinion they think they ought to be giving. Do you understand what I mean?
I do. But does it really matter at the end of the day if you have 2 billion people, 80% of which are okay, say they're okay with this behavior that 1% is actually doing? Like how does the 80%, how are they positively impacting?
If the other if the other 99% would be so convinced of this, then surely they would also be acting upon it.
But why? Like I don't understand why that is an arbitrary thing, that if you believe something, it arbitrarily requires action on it. Look at Christians. There's a lot of, and all due respect.
If you are so convinced that your faith requires you to go out there and slaughter the homosexuals, then you would expect, if they are really so convinced of it, they would go out there and slaughter the homosexuals.
No, what I'm saying is the 80% they're not convinced to go out. They're convinced that it's not a bad thing if someone goes out and slaughters homosexuals. And again, go back to my Christians. I don't like to compare Christianity and Islam, of course, but there's a lot of Christians that don't really particularly care much for homosexuals or think that it's a good lifestyle and would be completely fine having them go back in the closet or whatever. Kind of morally repugnant. However, you don't see them marching with the Westboro Baptist Church.
Right.
They
Or
share
say-
the belief.
Yeah.
Or
But they're not
saying that
acting on
again that violence is okay because
exactly.
It's not happening in that. And look, there are people that say they're Christian that are out there hurting all kinds of different folks, but they're not Christian.
Right.
They're not accepted by the vast majority of folks calling Christian. And I guess Britisher, I have to say that but that's where I differ with people that would say that that's not the way it is for outside of the Nation of Islam, as I mentioned here in the United States, because the Nation of Islam, peaceful people, they don't want no trouble. They don't cause any trouble.
Can I ask? And this is kind of a segue, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because I got very little
do
time.
we think that what we are observing is in fact a sort of what's the word? A counter-reformation? Because if you look, you can sort of see that about 40 years ago, Islam looked nothing the way it does now. The fundamentalization that has taken place across the Islamic world is quite profound. So, in a way, Islam, sort of in the 70s and whatever, was actually quite, the Islamic nations were quite modern. The Lebanon was described as the Switzerland of the Middle East. You had lots of people in Islamic countries, walking around shaven or with moustaches rather than in
When was this? I
clothes
missed when
with
you
big
mentioned the date.
Muhammad beards. So, are we actually seeing a sort of sort of a reaction to what went before, if you know what I mean?
Yes, you mentioned that in a previous stream I was watching earlier today, because I had mentioned that I was kind of binge watching. And I completely agree with you. I think what ended up happening, Iran in the 70s was a European-looking city. I mean, it was indistinguishable before the Shah's revolution. At 70s, 60s, I don't remember. I'm terrible with dates. But anyway, the point is, yes, I think 100%. I think Western influence creeped in, such as we've seen in Japan, China, and the fundamentalists were taken aback and freaked out. This is horrible. And then, of course, when you combine that with our being Western democracies, World War II are fiddling with the borders in the Middle East, creating Israel. You know, we stuck our fingers in areas that probably shouldn't, you know, we shouldn't have been in. And when you combine those two factors, we have just put ourselves the main target.
Ron Paul talks a lot about the coup of Iran and installing the Shah. That was all really bad stuff.
Bad idea.
Who knew at the time? I don't know. I'm not going to try to pin blame, but obviously the idea of interventionism or us going over there and sort of installing our
Bad
views,
idea.
it's just pointless. It seems to be just pointless. Now that it's where we are and we've already done that, now we're dealing with the problem of blowback, and the blowback is like, that's where it's just like this problem. It's just hardcore, man. I mean,
it's something that somebody asked me. She was on. I was on a stream with her yesterday on Caracal's channel, a Wolf Shot, because look, if we don't, this is the question: is history being erased? Are there forces trying to erase what actually has happened? And if so, doesn't that make us doomed to repeat what history is saying has happened?
Yeah.
And I hope you see where that ties into what we're just talking about.
Yeah.
Because look, they also called Detroit the Paris of America. I don't know if anybody knows that. In the 20s, Detroit was beautiful. Oh my goodness.
You see the pictures now, like the meme that shows Detroit next to Nagasaki or Hiroshima. Or something.
Yeah, or next to like Aleppo, and they're like, these are pictures from Aleppo, and oh no, just kidding, this is Detroit.
Detroit. Yeah. And so what I'm saying is things change, but if we don't look back at how it's changed, because Detroit is blamed on all kinds of things, man, the races that are there, whatever. But what it really comes down to is a lot of years of entitlement, a lot of years of you got this coming, and a lot of years of giving things out, a lot of years of very, very corrupt, near communistic, left-leaning, at least, very far left-leaning.
The welfare state, basically, in a microcosm.
Yep, it's done. It's gone.
It's interesting on that last stream on my channel that you were part of a week ago or whatever. That MC, I don't really know him, but he kind of wandered in, and I was re-listening to some of that because it was an 8-hour stream, dude. So I'm like, trying to kind of re-listen to some pieces of it, right? And he was like, the left has never trying to like take our liberties, control and stuff. And if you really, that kind of stuck with me talking about Detroit, because it's basically what's devolved into is this leftist hell pit of corruption. It's been that way.
Dystopian wasteland. And Brett,
Isn't
I want to
the
make
same
it clear
case
that
of Chicago?
Oh yeah, Chicago too. But I want to make it clear to both of y'all, because I am actually, if I really was to be honest, I am left Britisher. When you said conservative earlier, you said I'm here with three people that are probably more conservative. I kind of bristled a little bit inside, because I am an absolute liberal, man. I think you should do anything you want to do except steal my lawnmower.
What's happened in the modern political climate is the fact that the center has shifted. So if you were in the close to the center 20, 30 years ago, today the ground has moved beneath you. You are now on the political right.
Can't argue
without even taking a step to the side.
Can I sort of try to drag us back to where we just were? Sure. Because I would just like to sort of try and sort of probe this subject a little more. You know, when I was touching on the Counter-Reformation, because if we try and compare it with the Reformation of Christianity, you know, if you look at the bloody wars that Europe went through between Catholics and Protestants, that basically there was the Reformation, there was the Great Reformation, and it swept across Northern Europe. But then came the Counter-Reformation. Then the Catholics struck back, and it was a bloody conflict. But in a way, it was all part of the process. So is it possible that what we are actually seeing in our lifetimes, effectively, are some of these struggles going on within Islam? That effectively the Reformation actually came about somewhere in the 60s or 70s. But what we are seeing are kind of these tectonic plates shifting to and fro.
And so metaphorically, you're saying that it's basically a cornered animal making desperate swipes, like for the final moment you get, I guess.
Yeah, but as I say, because these things take so long to play out, I mean, the religious wars in Europe, I mean, they went on forever. So, this could well extend way beyond our lifetimes. But is it possible that what we are seeing is the equivalent of a fight between the sort of old Catholics and the new Protestants, that is in a way happening within the Islamic world in a greater context? Just in this case, of course, there is another more modern world living right next to it. If you think, what would the Catholics and the Protestants have done to another more modern world next to it had it been there?
Did you guys see what our president released from the White House today, by the way, on this exact subject? It ties right into the
No.
Maybe present that, Ogre. Send Ogre a link and then you can present it. We can all read.
Yeah, there you go. Good idea. I can send it to Ogre. Correct. Yeah, go on. It's really cool. It's a good idea. But he's basically, what Britisher was saying is he's playing, just like we were talking about earlier, he's playing nice, man. He went over to Saudi Arabia and he went and did the little sword dance thing, and he went there and he's trying to reform them. I mean, he's actually trying to do like good work on getting that done. So yeah, I'm shipping it over to you right now.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, because the iron hand of justice doesn't work. Iraq shows us that. I mean, the problem is we're not colonialists anymore. When we deploy the greatest military in the history of mankind, we do it by tying both legs and an arm behind our back. We have never, in the history of America, unleashed the full force and power of our military.
How long did it take Alexander the Great to roll with Ptolemy, Seleucus, Cassander, and Lysimachus across the entire known world, pretty much? Was it 3.5 years, Britisher?
Something like that, about 5 years, something like that.
Some may argue that if you put everything in perspective, that saying that the United States is the greatest military power that ever was in the history of man is debatable. And I would that argument.
Yeah, but
the Roman Legion.
We couldn't take over the world in 3.5 years right now. We could probably do it, maybe. I don't know, but it would take us longer than 3.5 years.
This to me is a 96 Bulls versus LeBron, 08 or whenever he was really good at argument.
I'm just
different,
saying, like,
different
if you
defense.
army to army.
Yeah,
well, no,
exactly.
I think the point he is, the Ogre is making is, I think in pure destructive power, then obviously the American army nowadays is the greatest force ever. But when it comes to pure quality, you would more than likely look at Alexander's army, or, as I would suggest, the Roman legions as the finest armies that ever existed.
Certainly, but we currently are the most destructive. We have the most power ever. We could eliminate the planet, and no other army has ever had that kind of power before. But the point is, we don't colonize. So when we go to places like Iraq, which arguably was a terrible idea, well, not arguably, at this point it was a fucking horrible idea. Afghanistan, I'll use that as a better example. Afghanistan, we blame for 9/11, even though 14 and 16 were Saudi, we went to Afghanistan. But we went to Afghanistan with the idea of winning hearts and minds, not destroying Afghanistan and making it the 51st state. That's the problem, because then we pussyfoot around and all we do is exacerbate problems that are already there. And then we go, okay, our job is done, let's go home. And we just leave this power vacuum.
Yeah, one of the interesting points you raise there is we are no longer, nobody these days is a colonial power anymore.
Right.
And one of the ways in which, in the past, the more advanced civilizations passed on their more advanced state to the more primitive civilizations was to effectively colonize them. And given that that is no longer happening, how do we actually expect the more backward parts of the world to be lifted out of their state?
That raises the question, because you use that, well, not an analogy, but that idea that this new rise in radical Islam we're seeing is actually their equivalent of the Reformation, or like the Reformation. What is to say that the result won't be the other way around? That instead of the Protestants winning, the Catholics win, for example.
So we go back
say that it won't
just a valid point. Yeah. That is a perfectly valid point.
Aren't we already?
There is no way of knowing, really. One would more than likely assume that sort of a more advanced idea would more than likely succeed, but you are right. There is absolutely no way of guaranteeing that. Because there was no way of guaranteeing that Protestantism would actually eventually win out.
But aren't we already, though, gentlemen? Aren't we already backsliding? I mean, you made the analogy earlier about terrorism changing us, quote unquote, not changing us rather, and yet there's soldiers on the streets of England now.
Black sliding, well, but it did not in my streets. That's England. They've been doing that. You go to Mexico. That's one thing that shocked me about Mexico. It wasn't the stench. It wasn't the 14-year-old girls legally selling their vagina on the side, on the street. It was, there's a lot of, anyway. I got to wrap it up pretty quick, folks. The tomato plants ain't gonna plant themselves, and it's a huge day for me. And this could grow on forever and ever.
I harvested my potatoes today.
You're harvesting your potatoes today? Oh, because
I harvested my potatoes today. Yes.
Because you're below the equator. Oh man, why am I even asking? I should be looking at a map before I just look like a fool.
Yeah, they're all the wrong way around down there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's going into your fall.
Backward.
Yeah. Just like it would be in Oz.
Thanks for having me on here, Ogre. You're the man. And I'll send that thing on Twitter. I got everybody's stuff now. I got it all kind of organized on a list. So I will send out that statement on Twitter.
I just got it from you right here. Yeah, I got it.
Man, I'm too ripped. I had a thought, and then the tomatoes. All I can think about is fucking tomatoes now.
And I've got it
out there, man.
And so, where can we find you, Clinton?
Oh, yeah, I'm at Review the Earth. Oops.
Yeah.
At Review the Earth.
Check him out. He rides down the road in his truck and talks shit, kind of like the hypnagogic monk. Guess you got a free plug there, hypnagogic. And
so everybody that's in the stream. Sorry. I'm saying everybody that's in the stream, I got you hooked up on Twitter. I've added you, so you should probably see me or whatnot. But I'll get there. All right, I'm checking out. Thank you so much, you guys. You guys are the best. All right, see ya.
Right,
see you later.
I like that guy. He's a spazzer. Brett. He sent me. He got a video today where he just like starts out playing Thin Lizzy from Scotland. Man, they're really badass if you've not heard of them. And
Thin Lizzy, weren't they Northern Irish?
Maybe. Well, it's one of them potato eater people. They're like kind of Britons, but only because y'all kicked their ass so bad they just beg to be part of it. You know what I mean? It's one of those folks. So maybe is it Irish? Whatever it is.
I think Thin Lizzy might have been Northern Irish.
Yeah, boy, they rock though. And he's just going down the road in his car, and he's playing called Freedom Song. Very good. Kind of. I mean, because everybody knows Boys Are Back in Town and Jailbreak, but not too many people know some of the other ones he's done. And this is a little deeper. And it picked my spirits up, guy, because the guy's a little nuts, but he's got a good head on his shoulders. He really does. He told me about he went to see Primus, and because I wanted to ask him about that today. I'll get to it sometime when he's on. I'm sure he'll share it. He had a good time, and sometimes when you go to do something, and this is the end, folks. Y'all know the Britisher, Conscious Caracal. This is a new fellow that's hanging about today. The Logical Lion. Gary, I think he said is his actual name. It's been since the beginning of the show. Greg. And it was a G. I had a G. Got the G.
Hey, you were close.
Well, before you do your finish, if there is one song you want to listen to while you're doing your tomatoes, not tomatoes, tomatoes, it would be I Would Walk 500 Miles by the Proclaimers.
The Proclaimers, man. All right.
I walk 500.
All right. Well, and so you could go check out the Britisher now that he said that. He gave me that good advice. I actually will be listening to the Dark Tower 7, the last in the series by Stephen King. I'm right now at the part where Father Callahan violently gives his life rather than become a vampire. Anyway, so that said, folks, look, I had a wrap up, but it was just like the rest of the show today. I didn't want to talk about Islam, but this is what I learned today from an unexpected source. It was from Clint. It was from Clinton, the big red Clinton Cox. It was this: enjoy the suck. Enjoy it when it's bad. If you stub your toe, be thankful you can feel it and that you have a foot. If someone hurts your feelings, be thankful that you're not a vegetable somewhere in a nursing home being taken care of by sadistic people that like to just torture you. But just be happy in whatever situation you find yourself in, and try to better yourself if you can, and if you can't, be as comfortable as you possibly can. I'm not going to elaborate on that anymore than to say go by, review the Earth. He's pretty entertaining. And remember, folks, be good to your friends, be good to your family members, be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge, you'll never be able to forget about it. Because constant viewers, at a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life, and everything you know will be gone, Sidney Rough Diamond.